Well, the second round of direct talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials in Turkey has ended today. They lasted just over an hour. Those talks took place a day after Ukrainian forces launched that astonishing drone attack on air bases deep inside Russian territory. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams.
A shattering blow in Russia's backyard. Strategic bombers attacked by swarms of drones controlled remotely from thousands of miles away. The vulnerability of Moscow's military cruelly exposed. See how the airfield looks, Ukraine's intelligence chief says, clearly delighted. Plenty of questions still to be answered about this complex operation. How did Ukraine pull off one of the biggest coups of the war so far? And how much damage was done?
I would like to address President Zelensky.
Arriving in Lithuania for a meeting of Eastern European and Nordic allies, Ukraine's president said the world needed to take note.
Europe, together with America, has better weapons than Russia. We also have stronger tactical solutions. Our Operation Spiderweb yesterday proved that Russia must feel what its losses mean. That is what will push it toward diplomacy.
Back home, a city digesting yesterday's dramatic news, unsure after so much suffering whether it makes the country any safer.
Maybe after an attack on their aircraft, they will start thinking differently and understand that we are capable of doing things. Thank you.
I think it will not be over until they occupy us, unfortunately.
I don't think anything will change. Those bandits won't be content with anything. They only be content when they destroy all of us. I'm sorry.
The audacity and ingenuity of yesterday's Ukrainian attacks almost beggar belief. They'll be discussed for years to come. Will they change the course of the war? Possibly not. But on a day when delegations are once again discussing the possibility of a ceasefire, the message is clear. Ukraine is not weak, and it will not settle for peace on Russia's or even America's terms. In Istanbul, the two sides have arrived. Talks have begun. With no sign that Russia has changed its demands, it's not at all clear what, if anything, can be achieved. Paul Adams, BBC News, Kyiv.
Let's go live to Istanbul where those talks were happening. Hugo Bachega is there for us. And Hugo, as I was saying just now, those talks broke up just after about an hour's worth of duration. What do we know in terms of what has come out of it?
Yeah, Matthew, so we heard from the Ukrainian defense minister who was leading the Ukrainian delegation. He said both sides had agreed that all prisoners of war who are seriously ill and also those under the age of 25 are going to be freed. But this seems to be the only achievement of these talks. He said that Russia has continued to reject the idea of an unconditional ceasefire and that the Ukrainian delegation didn't have time to react to the Russian proposals because those proposals were only presented to the Ukrainians during the meeting. And he also said that Ukraine believes that the key points in these talks can only be resolved during a meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin. He also said that Ukraine had three goals, three priorities in these talks. One, this unconditional ceasefire. This is a demand by the Ukrainians that any kind of negotiations about a long-term deal for this conflict can only happen after a ceasefire, which has been rejected by Russia. The Ukrainians also want prisoners of war to be released and also the children who were taken from Ukraine into Russia to be returned to Ukraine. Hundreds of children were forcibly removed from Ukraine during the war. And finally, the Ukrainians want this meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin to happen. The Ukrainians have suggested that this meeting should happen by the end of the month, and if that doesn't happen, that sanctions must be imposed on Russia. So I think there's still questions about Russia's real intentions in these negotiations here.
And Hugo, give me a sense of the mood amongst the delegations. We were just playing Paul Adams' report, those drone attacks yesterday that have snatched so many headlines. Did you get a sense from both sides of that being very apparent as a backdrop here?
Yeah, I think the expectations were very low of a breakthrough in these talks, and I think what many Ukrainians are saying is that Russia is not really interested in pausing the conflict, in ending the war. It has rejected this Ukrainian demand for this unconditional ceasefire. And what many Ukrainians are saying is that, well, look, we're seeing signs that Russia is actually planning a summer offensive to try to seize even more Ukrainian territory. Russia has intensified its attacks on Ukraine in recent weeks. And what we're seeing here is that both countries are under pressure from President Trump to reach a deal. The Ukrainians obviously need American support to continue with the war, and Russia wants the easing of economic sanctions, and many believe that this is the reason why Russia is engaging in these negotiations, that it is not really interested in reaching a deal. And I think after the talks today, we're seeing that both countries remain far apart in their demands.